You are listening to the Lawyer Stories podcast with host Benny Gold. Lawyer Stories was founded in July 2017 and is an expanding global network of lawyers and law students sharing their personal journeys to the noble profession of the practice of law. Join us on this podcast as we dig deeper into these stories and hear from lawyers and law students from around the world in all areas of the legal profession. Here at Lawyer Stories, we believe that every lawyer has a story. What's yours?
Welcome to the Lawyer Stories podcast with Benny Gold. Today we welcome in Reza Torkzadeh, founder and CEO of TorkLaw, an injury firm with offices in Los Angeles, Irvine, and Chicago, and taking cases from east to west all down the coast. I saw the map on your website. That looks good. Welcome in, Reza. How are you?
Thanks, man. I appreciate it, and thanks for having me on.
I also want to note big time that Reza is an author releasing a book, The Lawyer as CEO. So congrats to you on that. That looks really cool.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. So it's really cool to have you on, Reza. Like, you're one of those lawyers that I've just seen on Instagram for a couple years now. Like, I feel like we've chatted here and there. Like, I've seen TorkLaw, great Instagram account, 10,000 followers, it looks like. Really cool. You're doing a great job with that. So I kind of like feel like we know each other a little bit, like there's this like lawyer community. I don't know if you feel the same way, but sometimes I'll see these people in California at these networking events. I'm like, hey, I know that person. And I'm talking about just through a photo. So is that accurate? I mean, is this like a big community for you, would you say?
Well, I think so. I mean, it shows you the power of community and certainly the power of social media and, the constant repetitively seeing the same faces and names. So, yeah, I think to some degrees, this is the world we live in today.
It totally is. So, and we do appreciate your support. You actually were first featured on Lawyer Stories back in September 15, 2020. So like almost 2 years ago. And, you shared your story with the community. And I want to jump right in. It was really compelling. It's a good story. I know we have an updated draft, but I kind of want to jump into what you said, that your parents came to America in the late 70s, and they had nothing and barely spoke English. Like, first of all, like, where did they immigrate from, and like, what do they tell you about that, or what do you remember? I'm not trying to age anybody here, so either you remember or they told you about coming over.
Yeah, so it was the late 70s from Iran. There was a revolution at the time in the country, and my parents had just had me, and they were kids themselves when this happened. I mean, looking back now, I can't imagine being in my 20s, early 20s, with a brand new baby and in the middle of a revolution that upends their entire lives. So I was 2 months old. I don't remember anything, and they were essentially forced or in a way they, had to flee the country to save their lives, the lives of their brand new baby, and came to America to, start all over again, start fresh. They didn't know the culture. They didn't know the language. And looking back at what my parents did at such a young age, I cannot imagine having to go through something like that. So it's incredible because so many other Iranian folks who are my age have very similar stories of their parents leaving Iran in the late 70s and coming to America looking for, quote unquote, the American dream and a better future and better life for their children. And not by choice, but because of the revolution which overthrew the prior government.
Right. No, that's incredible. And to think that they came over with a young kid, and like there were no iPads back then. I mean, you couldn't really just look at one of those, and even if you're a couple months old, not like you'd be doing that. But that is pretty impressive. So do you remember like what childhood was like? Like, where were you? Were you in California?
Well, yeah. So I grew up in California.
Okay.
I had a great childhood. Just great memories, and I think I had as good an upbringing as you could have, and I had very supportive parents. I had a great younger brother who's currently my law partner in TorkLaw and trusted advisor and friend. But yeah, we had a great childhood, grew up in Los Angeles, and I'm still in Southern California and not leaving.
Oh, that's awesome. So like, when did you know, like what point did it hit you that you wanted to be a lawyer?
Well, I initially, went to school and studied, but I was a biology major and thinking I wanted to go to medical school. And in my last year in college, I realized A, I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor, but B,
Nah.
I had strengths outside of really medicine. And my grandfather was a doctor, my uncle is a doctor.
Okay.
And so it's sort of in the family and kind of ingrained. And if you're a Persian kid growing up, you know that you're either going to be a doctor or a lawyer, and that's it. Those are the two
Gotcha.
professions. But for me, it was sort of the upbringing that I had and having this background with the Iranian Revolution and the injustices that were ingrained in our brains growing up as kids. In a way, I felt like the next best way that I can truly impact the community and society as a whole, and what my life's purpose was ultimately going to end up being, was through the law. And I went to law school not with the intention of actually being a lawyer and practicing law, but using that education in hopes of being able to do something outside of the actual practice of law,
Really?
but having to do with justice and equality. Yep. And on an international level. So that's kind of where it started, and ended up where I am doing plaintiff's personal injury work.
Sure.
At TorkLaw.
Sure. So, and I'm going to get into that a little bit later. Like, one of your quotes from your first lawyer story is really like tuned into that. But so, like, what was your first job at a law school?
So I worked all through law school. Okay. And I worked at the DA's office. I did some business transactions, didn't like any of that. And then I ended up with a law school classmate of mine, starting a plaintiff's practice together from scratch. And so really it was right out of law school into the startup law firm in LA. And no cases, no experience, nothing, just let's hang the shingle and let's get to work type of deal.
That's awesome. So why personal injury law? You touched on it, justice, equality. You said you tried the other areas of law, wasn't really for you, didn't love it.
Yeah. And so I, in law school, I had this like misconception, and the derogatory term of ambulance chaser, rang true to my ears. I had no idea what that meant, but through plaintiff's personal injury, and it's, to me, the greatest equalizer is being able to level the playing field for individuals who otherwise wouldn't stand a chance, right? Like none of us would stand a chance if we went head to head against Google or Apple or any large corporation, let alone an insurance company. And so I think plaintiff's personal injury is really the one venue where you can equalize the odds and the fairness in front of a courtroom. And then what better way to say, we don't get paid and you don't pay us to represent you unless we win.
Right.
And then on top of that, the impact that has on an individual's life, which ultimately ended up being the core purpose of TorkLaw and why we do what we do, is we get to change people's lives on a level that I don't know any other platform or venue where you can actually do that.
Right.
Where you tell the consumer, we're going to get you the best legal representation available. We're going to fund it for you. We're going to prosecute the case. We're going to try it for you. And then if we don't win, you don't owe us a penny, and we pay the cost. I mean, what other business works that way?
So much out-of-pocket costs to put on a case.
Oh, totally.
But it's incredible. It's incentive for the attorney to really work hard for the client. I mean,
absolutely. And I just think it's maybe the only profession and only industry where it truly can have such a meaningful impact on someone's life and the life of their families. And so, that's why personal injury. I mean, I'm passionate about it. I love it. I've got a purpose, and it's really what's kept me going all of these years. I'm going on year 15 now.
Wow.
And you don't do this type of work for the money. You really do it because you've got the purpose that you believe in.
Well, I could definitely corroborate that with something that you said in your lawyer story, which was you were inspired to become a lawyer that represents the people, not the powerful. So you sort of just explain that, but I think that's a great quote and a great way to look at that. So,
Absolutely,
keep doing
yeah,
your thing.
absolutely.
Yeah. So you said you launched your firm really early on. Like, when did you know it was time to just do your own thing with your brother?
So 5 years into that first firm, I just, I had a different vision, and anyone who's got a partner in a law firm or any other business or organization, that you don't share every opinion and every idea. And I had this vision and thought of a firm that was different than the one we had started 5 years before that. And so it wasn't like an overnight decision. It had been something that I thought about long and hard. And, it was just really time for me to go out and start. And it was a really strange period. I'd just gotten married, still hadn't made any real money. I mean, 5 years in the practice, to think 5 years into the practice of law and not having made money sounds strange, but if you're a new lawyer starting your own firm and it's a contingency firm, you know what I'm talking about. So it was a strange time, but I really believed in it, and I had this vision. And it sounds cliche, but I had this goal that I wanted to reach, this model I wanted to represent, an organization that I wanted to be that we weren't. And I knew that the only way to do that was to just start my own firm.
So Reza, what advice can you give someone who wants to start their own firm?
Well, I think the first thing is understand why you want to start your own firm. What is driving you? Because again, I think if you think you're going to get rich by starting your own firm, it doesn't work that way. But if you have a good, solid reason and you're passionate and you've got purpose and there's a reason behind it and you've got a vision on what you want to represent, my advice is stay the course. Like, believe in yourself, invest in yourself, and stay the course. Times will be tough. They will get hard. You will make mistakes. There will be situations that you can control. And there are many situations where you cannot control, and you got to let those go. And the only thing you can do is really determine how you're going to respond to those. But it's challenging. And if you believe in yourself and you really believe in your purpose, then just stay the course no matter how hard it gets.
Wow, awesome. So tell us about the growth of TorkLaw, like what you've done over the past few years at your firm.
We've had incredible growth over the last 10 years. We're going on our 10-year anniversary this year, next month.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you. And, went from one person to a 2-man shop to a 4-person shop to 6 to 8. So we're over 50 people now.
Wow.
And it hasn't been easy. I talk about it in my book a lot. There's a lot of mistakes that I share in that book, and exponential growth year after year, both in terms of staff, caseload, revenue, and oftentimes growing too fast. And along the way, making mistakes when you are growing a business too fast. And I used to think there's no such thing as growing too fast. And, I kind of learned the hard way that, things need to really be thought out, and you have to be really intentional about the decisions you make, in particular, hiring and the staff that you bring into your firm.
Yeah.
I mean, that's ultimately what can make or break a firm as you're growing, is who you're allowing in and what you're allowing and what you're tolerating from your staff.
Do you do the interviews yourself? Like, are you looking at everybody, and like, how do you?
Not anymore. I used to.
Right.
And, I'm the worst to be involved in hiring. And, naturally I believe in people, and I want people to win, and I want to, give second and third chances. So I am no longer. I used to do them. I used to be intricately involved until I realized That's not my strong suit. I'm actually really weak at it, and I'm the
Really?
last person that should be involved in the hiring process.
Okay, fair enough. So we asked you some advice for someone who wanted to launch their own firm. Can you give us some advice for someone who specifically wants to be a personal injury lawyer?
I can't imagine a better practice area to be involved in. Find mentors who not only want you to win and who are there for you, but mentors who will help you win. And what I mean by that is it's really easy to find people that will root you on and share advice, maybe text messages, but go seek out those people who will actually help you win, who will do the things and take the actions without wanting anything in return, because those people
Right.
are out there. And those are the people
Yep.
that really make the transformational contributions. I had that. And truly, without some of the mentors, I'd be making and would have made significantly more mistakes than I had on my path. But find those mentors and find the good ones and take their advice and listen. And you don't always have all the answers.
Yeah.
And that's something that I thought, and I was expensive mistakes I made along the way.
Yeah, but I think that's amazing advice. So you had some good mentors along your way.
Great mentors. I still have them today. And these are people that over time, have shown that not only are they willing to be there for me to talk to and ask advice, but have actually done things and taken the steps and been proactive in making sure that I do win. And so just find the people around you in your circle. They don't have to be in the industry. They could be from a totally different industry, but they're the folks that truly selflessly, and they've got no interest other than wanting to see you win.
Yeah, a lot of people out there, bosses, whatever the industry, they don't want to see you succeed or go further in your career. Like you definitely need the ones that want to see you rise and do well and proceed in the career. So I think that's excellent advice. So tell us about your book, The Lawyer as CEO. I love this. It's succinct. It sounds very interesting, and we definitely want to learn about it. So tell us about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think more than anything, I thought about, like, if I was a new lawyer or a young lawyer starting my practice, what would have been some advice I wish I had early on? And this is a book where I was totally vulnerable. I share a lot of my mistakes. I share a lot of things that I wish I would have done differently now looking back. But our industry doesn't have that. For whatever reason, the legal industry doesn't provide these sorts of books and places that we can go to. Every other industry has classes and seminars that talk about the business of that industry. Lawyers are so focused on the practice of law and how to take a good deposition and how to try a case and how to pick a jury. What we're missing, and we've been missing this whole time, is, well, what about the actual business fundamentals that make an organization a world-class company? What are those things? Why is customer service so important?
So important
in the legal space? That was like something that nobody ever talked about. I didn't know about. They didn't teach me that in law school. And so I just kind of shared my stories that I felt made the most impactful difference to our practice. And I share those, and I was totally, transparent. And again, a lot of vulnerability in me taking on this task of putting a book out and sharing these stories. But if I can inspire even just one person, then I think I've done a great job.
Love that.
Many years ago, I picked up John Morgan's book, You Can't Teach Hungry. Mm-hmm. And that book to me was transformational and just helped me think about the business of law and law firm in a different way. And I think if I could do that for anyone out there, then I've done my job with the book.
That's amazing, and I really applaud you for putting yourself out there and opening up. So going back to like the whole customer service principle that you do bring up in the book, like, can you give us an example of a law firm or a lawyer as customer service, like the importance of it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So one thing that I tell the staff, and they're sick of hearing me say this, is I always say we're a customer service business that happens to practice law.
Sure.
I mean, we're in Los Angeles in Southern California, where there's more personal injury lawyers than there are Starbucks. And so the average consumer, how do they know the difference between one law firm and the other? I mean, every major city you go to, every billboard or every other billboard, it feels like, is a personal injury billboard.
Right.
How does a consumer tell the difference? Well, they can't. They don't know. They can't tell the difference between the great trial lawyers and, the not so great trial lawyers. And so really it comes down to your brand and what you want to represent, and ultimately the longevity and the vision of your firm. I've always wanted to be the gold standard in the industry. And the only way you can be the gold standard, in my opinion, and the only way you can truly differentiate yourself is to handle your client, the most important asset you have, which are your clients. Handle them as if it's your last client. Handle that client as your biggest cheerleader, because the only thing the client is going to remember when their case is over, they're not going to remember how much money you got them. What they're going to be left with is how you made them feel.
Right.
How did you make them feel? Because that client, if you made them feel great, they're going to go out and they're going to refer their family and friends to you. And that is how you grow your business naturally, organically, and by reputation. And this industry is really small, right? And so that is what I mean when I talk about customer services. How are we making our clients feel? If you're not returning phone calls, if you're not respectful, if you're not courteous, if you don't have the patience to sit and allow the client to vent, because a lot of times they just want to vent, then who are we? I mean, why are we doing this? The reason we started doing this in the first place was to be there for our clients during some of their darkest times.
Right.
And so I think a lot of law firms miss that. And I think a lot of law firms discount the value of truly being a customer service oriented organization. Look, this doesn't mean you don't have to provide outstanding legal service. You absolutely have to. That's a given. It doesn't mean you don't have to if you're a trial firm, then you got to do that to the best. You got to be the gold standard there. But where I think law firms and us, especially early on, we fell short was leaving out the most important component, which was actually the customer service element of it.
Well, and I did read that something you wrote, I think, in your story about empathy and compassion. I think that's all part of it, the customer service experience. I mean, I can't imagine, the layman might know a little bit about negligence or whatnot, but like you say, they're going to remember how you made them feel. So I think that's a tremendous approach.
I'll tell you, we have recovered 7 figures for clients who want nothing to do with us, don't ever want to hear from us again. And we've had $1,000 recoveries where that client ends up being our biggest cheerleader and referring us cases. And so, when I say it's not tied to the money, it truly isn't.
Yeah, for sure. So can you provide some advice for a young lawyer? What would you like to tell a young lawyer out there?
Don't look around to see what your competitors are doing and think that they've got it all figured out. There's the right decisions to make and the wrong decisions to make. And I think everybody knows the difference between those. So, make decisions based on ultimately what is the best course of action, number one, for your client, but for your organization and what you want to represent. And this is a long-term game, right? So, the advice is don't look at the other firms and feel like you have to compete against them dollar for dollar, advertising for advertising. I mean, you can't. You do it your way, make the decisions, make the right decisions, and just be a good human being and be, at the end of the day, don't be an asshole, and just, be a good human being.
Like it. A lot of good stuff here, Reza. So what has been your most impactful experience as a law firm owner, CEO?
Yeah, I mean, great question. I talk about this in the book. I think it's a pivotal moment in the history of my firm. We wouldn't be where we are, but there was a point where the firm had turned into this really strange culture, toxic environment where every day I was dealing with the politics and the drama and the gossip and the rumors and the sabotage. I mean, it had turned into an absolute nightmare for me. And here's someone who this was my life's passion. I love what I was doing. I really had a purpose behind it, but then the firm was internally imploding. And in one day, I offered the entire firm 3 month severance to leave.
Really?
And essentially said to the staff, either you're here because you want to be here, or I'm going to offer you 3 month severance to leave. And at the time, and this is ego and that I had, I was so blind to it, thinking that nobody was going to take that offer, and that we were the greatest organization to work for. We were the best company. We had the best culture. And little did I know that we didn't. And it was actually a terrible place to be at the time. And so half the firm, over 16 people, took that offer in one day and left. That was a very expensive day at the time. To me, it was the worst day of my life.
Wow.
I went home. I felt like I was a failure. It was embarrassing. I couldn't believe it. Half the firm left. And it was a moment of self-realization that I had truly failed as a leader. That on one hand, I was saying one thing, and on the other hand, I actually wasn't doing what I was saying. And it took a long, hard look at myself and realize, look, it starts at the top. It starts at leadership. And if you're a law firm owner, what you do and the example you set and what you tolerate from your employees is a direct contribution to ultimately what the culture of your firm ends up being. And so I would say that one day, and it was very expensive, and I don't recommend doing that or offering that to anybody. But if there was one moment in time in the history of our firm that I could point to that really made such a difference, would be that one day.
Wow. How long ago was that?
I think going on 6 years now,
Okay.
about 5 or 6 years ago.
Got it. So you say in your lawyer story that the core purpose of TorkLaw is to change the lives of your clients who come to you during their worst days of their lives, like the worst ever situations. How do you do that? How do you change how do you change their lives? What does it take as a personal injury lawyer?
Look, it's challenging. I mean, it's the real life David versus Goliath, number one. And I think it takes a certain type of personality to be able to be a good plaintiff's lawyer. I think you have to have a high tolerance for risk. I think you have to have the mental fortitude and stamina. This is a long game. And so, this is an incredible responsibility when someone comes to you for help and they've got no one else to come to, and they've lost a loved one or they've been catastrophically injured, and they're up against, a multi-billion-dollar corporation who wants nothing more than to prevent a payout to these individuals.
Right.
And so, I equate it to being a superhero in many ways, in the honor of being able to represent these folks. And, clients that I've represented 15 years ago, 14 years ago, 10 years ago, I still get text messages and pictures and cards.
Oh, yeah.
And they say things like, look, if it wasn't for your firm, we wouldn't be where we are today, whether that's providing medical care for the rest of their lives or the money needed to provide them the support or build, convert their home into a way where it's conducive because now they're wheelchair bound. I mean, there's so many different ways that the compensation we get impacts lives beyond just the money and the monetary amount. It's what that money does for what has now been lost. And, it's an incredible honor. And I can't imagine doing something else with my life.
That's amazing. So Reza, what's next for TorkLaw, and anything else you want to tell us about your book, Lawyer as CEO?
Yeah. So for the book, I put this out there. I'm donating 100% of the proceeds to two charities here in Southern California. One is the Los Angeles Trial Lawyer Charities, and the other is the Orange County Trial Lawyer Charities, two magnificent organizations who do amazing work and, you know, help thousands and thousands of folks in need every year. So if you do purchase the book, which I hope you do, number one, I hope you get inspiration from it. And number two, 100% of the proceeds are going back to these two charities. So please grab it, and you can find it on Amazon or iTunes or, you know, wherever you buy books.
Yeah, we definitely want to help you promote that, like on our stories, and like we'll do something like
I appreciate it.
I'll be in contact and ask you about like the specifics, like
right.
So I have it in writing, and we can do a whole swipe up thing for it. See if we get any sales for you, because that's awesome that you're 100% of it. Super cool, or as we'd say in the Massachusetts area, wicked cool, right?
That's great. Well, I appreciate that. And then, you know, what's next for TorkLaw? We're coming off the best year we've ever had last year, both in terms of revenue and incoming cases. And, you know, I think we'll continue to scale, we'll continue to grow. We're in multiple cities now, as you mentioned early in the interview. And, you know, I think the big thing for us is really find great talent, attract great talent, and be able to go out and do the good work that we do on a wider scale to a broader audience. And, you know, I think as you see some of our stuff online, being involved in the community is really important to me, and the contributions we make to the community and the folks that we meet. I think, you know, TorkLaw will be continuing that, and we'll be continuing to grow that as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. You're out there. You know, we see you're doing great things. You definitely excited to see the book. So is there anything else you want to say to the Lawyer Stories community? Any other advice? Anything we missed tonight?
I don't think so. I mean, be real. I think that, you know, a piece of advice, I wish I had early on in my legal career. I always felt like I had to imitate the lawyers that were older than me, the lawyers that were there before me, you know, speak a certain way, dress a certain way, be a certain way, act a certain way, and just be authentic, be yourself, be true to yourself. You know, I don't think that I really started having some success until I learned that I'm better off just being myself than trying to pretend being someone else. And, you know, being fake, it's obvious, and you can't fake that. So just be yourself, be a human being. People will accept you and will have a lot more respect for you if you are just yourself.
I love that. Reza, that's such good advice. Reza Torkzadeh. I hope to come out and like to Cali to one of these events and like meet all these people that I perceive are my friends in the legal industry, but I don't know. Like, I know them through Instagram, and it's like super fun. And, you know, we message and I feature them and we do a podcast. And then, you know, I think it'd be really cool to meet all you guys, all the, you know.
Come on out. We'd love to have you. We'll host you here. We'll host you here at Lawworks.
Oh man, that'd be amazing. And yeah, Lawworks, by the way, Lawworks is super cool. If you want to say something for a minute about that, because I've seen that on Instagram too. And it's funny because when we got on this chat, I totally recognize it. And I was like, I know that background. Like, where are you, Reza? You know,
So we're in our Irvine office. Before the end of the summer, we're opening up an office, a Lawworks location in LA. And really I think it's a plug and play solution for any lawyer who wants to, number one, have an office space, or at least have a place if you're working from home to use your conference room, similar to an executive office. And I think an executive suite, the main difference is we're a member, it's lawyer membership based. And, you know, we've got an amazing membership that collaborates, they refer cases to each other, they work on cases together, they try cases together, and they're from all practice areas. So I think it's just a plug and play solution for not only a built-in network, but also a built-in solution for your office space.
Super cool. It's such a changing industry, and you're at the forefront. Reza, thanks so much. Stay right there. I appreciate it. Had a good time. It's really cool to meet you virtually. And everybody else, hope you enjoyed it wherever you are in the world today. Enjoy yourselves. Cheers.